Hey kiddos, it's Miss Patty, and I'm excited to show you this project because it's all about color mixing, and that is literally one of my most favorite things to do as an artist. And we're going to use color mixing in this late fall, almost barely snow touching the ground winter scene. And what we're going to do, we're going to draw and paint a landscape, but we're going to draw migrating geese, some Canadian geese that are soaring over the treetops, and it's going to look 3D. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Are you excited? Okay, let's get started. So this project is broken up into 3 different sections. So the first section is about drawing a really rough outline of trees and hills and maybe like a pond, whatever you would like to put in your landscape. And then we're going to paint it. And that's when we're going to be using painting mixing techniques. So we're going to mix white paint and black paint with our colors. Doesn't that sound cool? Then the second step is to let the landscape paper dry while we draw some geese. And if you want to, you can draw some bunnies or some deer, something to put on the ground. So then the third step is kind of putting it all together. Okay, so here's what you're going to need. I'm using just a regular sheet of drawing paper, just something like this. And it's just white paper, it's not watercolor paper, just nice smooth paper. I'm going to use a black colored pencil to draw with. If you want to use pencil, that's totally fine too. But I do want you to get out a black colored pencil because we're going to be adding lots of detail a little bit later onto our background. Then we're also going to be adding some details to our Canadian geese. So you might want to get some brown and I think maybe some yellow too. So just get out your colored pencils. Then the most important part, we're going to be using cake tempera paint mixed with white liquid tempera paint. So these are the dry and these are the wet. And we're going to mix them together and we're going to create the coolest colors. So you're going to need just one paintbrush, your favorite paintbrush that you love painting with, some water, and then later on we're going to need some scissors and glue. Okay, that's it, really. Let's get started. We're going to start by drawing our trees, and what I want you to do is look at the bottom of your paper, and that's the area that's closest to us, and I want you just to draw some wobbly shapes that look like trees. And here's one, and I'm going to add the trunk of the tree with some very basic branches, and let's do a taller one. Maybe the trunk is just a little thinner with more branches. Let's see what that looks like. That looks good. And maybe I'll do a smaller one right here. There we go. So I have 3 big trees. Look at those. Now we want to start adding kind of like layers of landscape. So let's make a little hill right here. And let's make a background. Let's start on this side of the paper and just see where your colored pencil takes you. I think I'll go up here like that. Now, I think it would be cool to add some trees here, but first I want to add a nice sloping hill and maybe another hill in the background. Okay, so I have lots of different lands. When you're creating your lands, all you have to do is start from the outside and say, how flat or how rolling do I want my hills? Do I want mountains? And the most important thing is not to trace through your trees and just to make sure you go all the way off the edge of your paper, and that's going to give you a beautiful landscape. Okay, so I think I'm going to add some trees here. These are going to be like the Coniferous trees, which are the Christmas type trees, those evergreen trees, and they're basically just triangles. So some thick triangles and skinny triangles. There we go. Now right here I'm going to add a little pond. So look at this flat oval. I wonder if it extends here just a little bit. That's going to be a little pond. Maybe a little hill right there. Okay, I'm really happy with that. So put away your pencil, my black pencil in my case, and now I'm going to start coloring this. But I want you to get out a scrap piece of paper because we're going to play a little bit with our colors first. So when you're mixing colors, you have so many options, kids. And one of my favorite things to do is painting straight from the palette. Like, I love this beautiful orange, and I love making this beautiful yellow, and I love making this beautiful blue. I think this blue might be my favorite color in this whole palette. But what I want you to do is think about the color that you want your landscape to be. So in this work of art, it's mostly blues and greens, but you don't have to just do blues and greens. You can do brown and orange. You could do pink and red. You could do purple and blue. And I think I'm going to do purple and blue. So what I want you to do is find some blues and purples that you like. And I have some right here. Here's a purple that looks like this. And I want you just to put that color right on your paper. Clean your brush. And here's a blue that, in my mind, it looks a little bit purpley, but that's what it looks like. And here's another blue, one of my favorites. Isn't that pretty? And then here's another color that kind of goes with this because it's a very cool pink. But if you mix it with blue, it will turn a little bit more purple or violet or magenta. Now, those are the colors. But what happens if you take this purple and you add just a little bit of black? Let's see what that looks like. Look how much darker it becomes. Isn't that cool? Let's try it with the blue. Taking some blue, and then I'm tapping it in the black. Ooh, look at that color. It looks like a pair of jeans. And let's do this blue and add some black. Oh, that's beautiful. Look how dark. It's like a dark teal. It's like the ocean. And let's do the pink. And a little bit of the black. Ooh, that's very interesting. So you just created a shade. So when you mix a color with black, you get a shade. So the opposite of that is a tint. And that's when you add a little bit of white paint. So I'm gonna put a little bit of white paint in my palette. I scooped or poured a bunch of white paint into my little circle in my palette. Now I'm gonna clean my brush really well, and let's do the very same thing. I'm gonna take my purple, and I'm gonna dip it in some white, and I'm just gonna mix that right on the paper. Look how creamy, it's like pastel. Isn't that nice? Oops, I went on my artwork. Okay, now let's do this darker blue. Take a little bit of white. I'm going to mix it in my connector paint. And look how light it becomes. Isn't that pretty? Now let's do it again for this color. Take a little bit of the white, mix it in. It becomes so creamy. Oh, so fun to do this. Now I know you've done this a lot of times in primary, but to me, it just never gets boring adding white to your beautiful palette of paints. Look how pretty that is. You can do the whole palette of your colors, but now look at the colors that I'm going to be working with on my painting. That's what I want to keep really close by. So I'm going to hold this up here, and I think I'm going to choose colors based on my palette, and I'm going to start with my lightest colors, and I think I like this pink. So look how much paint I'm adding to my palette. It looks super goopy. I'm gonna do a pink sky, pink and purple. It's gonna back and forth. Sometimes if you want it a little bit more white, just use the white paint. I'm gonna add a little bit of this dark blue. Isn't that pretty? I'm just going back and forth. Whenever your paint feels like it's a little dry, kids, just add either more white paint or more water to your brush. Now, if you want to, you can always add a little bit from another color from the palette. And I have a little bit of yellow here that I thought would really be pretty. Just like that. Ooh, I think I'm gonna add a little bit more of yellow over here. That's kind of a neat effect. Okay, so now I'm moving towards my beautiful landscapes. And I want to think about what the color is underneath the snow. And if you're using colors like blue and purple, you might say to yourself, well, I don't really see purple fields out there. My fields are green or yellow or brown. Well, you can use your imagination. And if you want to, for instance, in this artwork, I used a light green and I used a gray and I used a yellow. So you can decide the colors that you're using. But I think I'm going to stick with this blue. And I'm just using the teensy weensy bit, but I'm going to add a little bit of black this time. I want to add a little bit of, oh, that's a cool color. It almost looks gray. Mixing a little black and white and blue together. Take a little bit more blue. And you want to paint each different section. Now, don't worry about all the colors kind of getting a little bit messy because we can clean that up a little bit later. Now I'm going to add some darker blue. I'm going to add a little bit of that yellow. It always kind of warms things up a bit and it kind of turns a little bit green. Now, see how I kind of painted over those trees? Don't worry about that. I'm gonna fill that in a little bit later. In fact, you can kind of cover the whole thing. It's gonna add a nice depth to your trees a little bit later on. Trust me on this one. Okay, so now I'm gonna start painting around here. I think I'm gonna take a little bit of purple. Now, notice I haven't really cleaned my brush. Don't clean your brush because you're gonna get some really interesting colors on your paintbrush that you're just gonna really like. And when you get those interesting colors, it's kind of fun just to see what happens. So you don't wanna erase all of that. When you're creating art, you have to remember that it's all kind of an experiment. And every time you pick up your paintbrush, you're playing and learning something new. I'm going to try to keep this area mostly white because it's snow. Maybe add a few little white snow drifts right here. The white paint's really great for covering up anything that you don't like. It's nice and thick. Any lines that you don't like. So I'm going to keep this area white, but I'm adding a tiny little bit of blue so that it looks like freshly fallen snow. Now this area in here I'm going to paint dark. It's going to be blue and black together. I'm going to clean off my brush because I don't want as much white paint there. Kind of want to get this color right over here. And I think I got it. There we go. Now I'm going to do these trees, but I want to do a color that's a little bit more contrasting. So in this work of art, I have blue, green, and teal trees, but my background was more yellow and brown. So you want to make your trees just a little bit different than your background. So I'm going to use this yellow, this beautiful yellow color that I use all the time. And I'm just going to go around my tree trunk. I think I'll add a little bit of white to that. Here's what I'm talking about. When you mix a little bit of the white with the ochre and then the blue is there and you're kind of getting it all messed up, look at these beautiful colors that happen. So don't be afraid of a messy or a dirty paintbrush. In this type of painting, it's really fun just to see what happens. Okay, now I'm going to add a little bit of blue to that color because I want to get some green without dipping into my green puddle. Now I'm mixing some brown and blue together. I don't do that very often. Wonder what will happen. Okay, so now I'm going to dip my paintbrush in some black and brown, and I'm going to make my tree trunks. Do you see how I'm pushing my paintbrush away? Just want to really just use the tip of my brush and let the paintbrush do all of the work. Because this tree is brown, I'm going to add more of a black tree trunk, just so it stands out more. There. Now a few more details. I'm going to add some green and some black together so that I get this really dark, beautiful, evergreen look. Now here's what I want you to do. Just take your paintbrush and press it down just like this so that the tip of the paintbrush is pointing at the top of the tree, and just go wiggle, 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 and then just fill it in. See? Add a little bit more black, press your tip of the brush, and wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Isn't that fun? Let's add more green to the next one. Wiggle, wiggle. Maybe add some brown. There. We'll add a little bit of white to that in a few minutes. But right now, I want to clean my brush really well, and we're going to add some white back into our artwork. So I have my white paint, and my sky is starting to dry really well, so I want to make some clouds. So just paint some clouds. It's going to mix in with your sky, and that's perfect. Just want to lighten up the sky area. Now remember, you might have a completely different color sky. You might have a yellow sky, or an orange and pink sky, or a blue sky. There, that's pretty. And any place that you want more snow, like maybe in these little trees, just go ahead and add them. Okay, I'm happy. Now there's one more thing, I promise, only one more thing. We're going to take a little bit of black and mix it with some white to get a little gray. And I'm gonna get you to just create a little shadow by these trees. Just like that. And then just along the outside. I think what I'm going to do is let this paint dry a little bit, and then I'm going to use my black crayon, my colored pencil, to add more details. But now I'm really happy with my art. This is not done. Oh no, we still have some details, but it's too wet to add the details. So I'm going to clean this up. Oh boy, look at my paints. You're going to have to run this under water to get it all clean again. And I'm just going to put this aside. And I want you to get out some scraps of paper, because what we're going to do now is draw our Canadian geese. We're going to draw a Canadian goose, and actually a couple of them, and they have these really tiny heads but huge wings. So the way you start is by just making a tiny little dot, almost as big as the tip of your finger, and just add a little triangle on it. Now, this goose, if you can take your pencil and go from the tip of the beak all the way to the end of the feet, it kind of goes in one streamlined line. So we want to take our neck or our head and make a nice long neck. They have beautiful long necks. And then we want to make a nice kind of like almost like a football shaped body. Just like that. And their little feet are always tucked up way back here. Okay, so it looks kind of like a bowling pin with a little tail. Now, what you want to do is think about the wings. We're going to draw one big wing on this side. So it goes from like the middle of the body, and it goes out and then down. And then what you want to think about is, how does it join from here to there? It's just a slightly curved line, just like that. Now, we're going to make these lines like little fingers, and then they get a little bigger, and they start to spread, just like that. Now you made one side of your goose. Now to make the other wing, it's going to come down the other side. So we're drawing the wings as it's flapping underneath the body. Just draw a little triangle and those little feathers that dip down, just like that. And that's it. Now we'll color that in just a minute, but let's draw another one. Let's get another piece of paper. And this time let's draw the wings going up. So let's do the very same thing. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger this time. Draw the nice long beak. Remember that long line, then the long neck that comes from both sides, the football shaped body, and then how he tucks his little feet. Now this time we're going to make a little curved line right in the middle of the body, and the wings are going to go up and over. I'm almost running out of room. So now turn your artwork this way, and oops, I did run out of room. Start making your wings. I'm going to have to do that again, kids, because I totally ran out of room. I wonder if I can stick the wing. I think I could stick it here. So it's like this. It's like a boomerang. And, oh, I think I did it. I think that looks pretty good. Yeah, I thought I might have to do it again, but I think that's okay. Maybe I'll make that go down a little bit lower. And it's good. Okay, now let's color these two. I want to get out this light peach color, a pink color, and some brown. And I just want to color in the face brown. And just underneath their wings, I'm going to color the little feet pink. You can color it completely black and white, but I kind of like adding a little bit of color. And the rest is going to be dark. They do have dark heads. And how about this peach? And I have some pictures right here so that you can follow along with the picture and draw your birds. We also have a handout that you can use to practice drawing a bird. Now these feathers are black, so I want to really press down hard on my colored pencil to get a really good color, and I'm leaving just a little bit of white showing. There, that's one. Now I'm going to sharpen my colored pencil, and I'm going to do the other one. Okay, boy, that was a lot of coloring. So now when you're happy with your goose, I want you to take your scissors and very carefully cut out the entire thing, leaving a little tiny piece of white around the contour of the bird. Now, if you want to draw a deer or a little rabbit, perhaps, feel free to do so. I have a couple of drawing guides right beside me, and you can look in the printable pack below that you can print out and come up with a few other ideas. And you would put the deer or the rabbit or even a kitty cat or a dog on the ground, and then we will draw some footprints for it. This is almost dry enough to add a few details with my black colored pencil. Now what I want to do, I just want to go over the areas where my hills are. You just want to add a little bit more definition. So maybe adding a little black along the outside of my trees. Now these lines are very loose, and you can add details with your colored pencil. And this is what really kind of makes your art come alive. All the little extra details that you add with your colored pencils. I'm sticking with one color, the black, but that doesn't mean you have to. You can use any color that you wish. I'm adding these little horizontal lines just so it looks like it's like a sheet of glass. So now I'm coming around to my trees, and I might add some new color in here. I'm just going around the shapes, going around the bark. And if you want to, this is a good place to add more tree branches. I'm going to add a little coloring right here because this tree overlaps this one and this one overlaps that one. Oops, it looks like I'm going to have to sharpen my colored pencil. There we go. Now, you can use your imagination here because you can put little birds in the trees. So you can draw a little bird's nest. Maybe I'll do one right here. Add some brown. And then maybe I'll sneak in a little cardinal. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. Now I'm gonna make some paw prints. I don't know what kind of animal tracks these are, but I'm gonna add them anyways. Maybe I'll do some here. Okay, now in this piece of art, I did add some trees in the background, and you are more than welcome to do that. But I think for me, I'm gonna put my Canadian geese soaring through the air. So this one is a little bit bigger, so it's going to move down the paper so that it looks closer to us. Now remember, it's totally fine to put it over the trees because the goose is in the air, so he can cover the trees. This bird is a little bit smaller, so I'm moving him closer to the top of the paper. Okay, so I'm going to, come back here, cap. Add some glue. Right there. Yes, it looks like he's taking a nosedive. He probably wouldn't do that, so I'm going to straighten them up. There we go. They tend to fly pretty straight, these Canadian geese. They know where they're going. They are heading south. Okay, doesn't that look cool? Now you get to decide if there's any details that you might want to add, but I think I am good. Oh, one thing we could do, maybe make more of their friends in the background. So little tiny V's that have just slight curves. And you know, they do fly in a V formation, which I didn't do a very good job of drawing, but you could do that. Okay, boys and girls. Oh, that was really a lot of fun. Color mixing isn't something that you should ever be afraid of. If your palette gets a little messy, or if your paintbrush has a lot of different colors on it, some projects are just designed to be played with, and this is one of them. So I cannot wait to see all the different colors that you've created in your Migrating Geese landscape. I'll see you next week.